My parents secretly gave my inheritance to my brother. They thought I'd never find out, until I did. I always thought my parents treated my brother better than me, but I never realized how deep the favoritism ran, until I found out they secretly gave him my inheritance. For years, they told me there was nothing extra to give, that I needed to stand on my own 2 feet, while my brother got handouts left and right. I worked hard, built my life from scratch, and never asked for anything. But one day, completely by accident, I found legal documents that changed everything. My parents had lied to me. They had money, but they gave it all to my golden child brother behind my back. So I did the only thing I could do. I confronted them. And when they refused to make it right, I made sure they regretted it. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Growing up, it was always clear. My brother was the favorite. It started small. He got the new bike, while I got the hand-me-down. He got extra money for school trips, while I was told to be responsible with my spending. He got to move back home rent-free after college, while I was expected to be independent. But I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Life isn't fair, right? I worked hard, built my career, and made my own way in the world. I never asked for handouts, and I never expected much from my parents. Then one day, everything changed. It started when I got a strange phone call from an old family friend. Uncle Dave, not a real uncle, but one of my dad's closest childhood friends. He sounded hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he should say anything. "Hey, I just wanted to check in. I heard about the inheritance situation. I assume everything's been sorted out." I frowned. "Inheritance? What inheritance?" A long pause. "Wait, you don't know?" My heart dropped. Something was wrong. Uncle Dave hesitated, then let out a sigh. "Kid, you need to have a conversation with your parents. Soon." I hung up, my mind racing. What the hell was he talking about? As far as I knew, my parents weren't sitting on some secret fortune. They had always told me that they were getting by, that they had just enough to retire, but nothing more. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling wouldn't go away. So I did what any sane person would do. I went digging. And what I found changed everything. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. My parents had always been careful with money, always reminding me to work hard and never expect handouts. But Uncle Dave's words kept echoing in my head. So, the next morning, I decided to do some digging. I started with something simple, checking public records. My parents weren't wealthy, but they owned their house outright. I found the property records easily enough, but what caught my eye was a recent transaction. It wasn't a sale. It was a transfer. Less than a year ago, they had signed the house over to my brother. For free. My stomach dropped. This was our childhood home. The house we grew up in. The one they always said they'd split between us when the time came. And now, it belonged to him. I felt a cold rage build in my chest. They never even told me. I needed answers. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my parents' house. I walked in without knocking, my hands shaking from the anger bubbling under the surface. Mom and Dad were sitting at the kitchen table, drinking their usual morning coffee. They looked up, startled to see me. "Hey, sweetheart," Mom said. "What's wrong?" I didn't even sit down. I pulled out my phone and held up the property records. "This," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Why didn't you tell me you gave the house to my brother?" Dad's face stiffened. Mom looked away, suddenly interested in her coffee. It was obvious they had been caught, but instead of apologizing, Dad just sighed and rubbed his temples. "Look, we didn't think you'd mind. You have your own place. You're doing fine. Your brother, well, he needed it more." He needed it more. I let out a bitter laugh. "So, let me get this straight. You always told me there was nothing extra for me. You told me I had to be independent. Meanwhile, you handed him a whole damn house?" Mom shifted uncomfortably. "It's not like that." "Oh, it's exactly like that," I snapped. "What else haven't you told me?" Silence. For the first time in my life, I saw it. The guilt. They had been hiding something much bigger than just the house. And I wasn't leaving until I knew everything. Mom and Dad exchanged a look, the kind of silent conversation parents have when they're caught in a lie and scrambling to come up with an excuse. But I wasn't letting them wriggle out of this. I folded my arms, my voice cold. "I'll ask one more time. What else haven't you told me?" Mom sighed, setting down her coffee. "It's complicated," I scoffed. "Oh, I bet." Dad ran a hand down his face, looking exasperated, like I was the problem here. "Look, your brother, he's always had a hard time. We just wanted to help him get on his feet." I gritted my teeth. "He's never been on his feet, Dad, because every time he screws up, you bail him out." They flinched, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone again, this time opening my banking app. "You know, it's funny. Every time I struggled, college tuition, rent, even when I had medical bills, you told me you couldn't afford to help. You told me to figure it out." I turned my phone around, showing them a screenshot of my last 10 years of financial records. "Meanwhile, I've transferred you thousands of dollars. You said it was to help with expenses." Mom's lip twitched. We needed it." I narrowed my eyes. "Did you? Or were you using my money to cover for my brother?" Another long silence. Then finally Dad sighed. "It wasn't like that." I slammed my hand on the table. "Then tell me what it was like, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been funneling my money to him this whole time." Mom wiped her hands on a napkin, avoiding my gaze. "Your brother was going through some things. We didn't want to stress you out with it." I let out a sharp laugh. "You mean he made bad choices and you cleaned up his mess, using my money?" Dad's face hardened. "We're family. Family takes care of each other." That was it. The final straw. I pushed back my chair and stood up, shaking my head. "Number?" "I took care of this family. I worked my ass off. I gave you money whenever you asked, and what did I get in return? Lies, deception, and a brother who was handed everything while I was told to tough it out." Mom's voice cracked. "We thought you'd understand." I let out a bitter chuckle. "Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that you picked a favorite, and it sure as hell wasn't me." Dad exhaled sharply. "It's just money, son." I froze. Just money. After years of sacrificing, working extra shifts, saving every penny while they secretly funneled my earnings to my brother, and now it was just money? I took a slow breath and straightened. "All right, if that's how you feel, then I don't owe you a damn thing anymore." Mom's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I picked up my phone and pulled up my bank settings. With a few taps, I canceled every automatic transfer. I looked them dead in the eye. "You're cut off." Their faces dropped. For the first time, they realized they had milked me dry, and now there was nothing left. And I wasn't going to be their personal ATM anymore. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Mom looked like she had just been slapped. Dad's face twisted into something between shock and frustration. I had never seen them this rattled before. "You can't be serious," Mom finally said, her voice unsteady. I smiled coldly. "Oh, I'm dead serious." I held up my phone. "See this? Every automatic transfer? Gone. Every little help with bills payment? Done. Every time you called me needing just a little extra this month? Never happening again." Dad's nostrils flared. "So what? You're just going to cut off your own parents? After everything we've done for you?" I let out a sharp laugh. "After everything you've done for me? Are you actually hearing yourself right now?" I gestured toward the house, my childhood home, that was no longer mine. "You didn't do a damn thing for me. You told me to be independent while you were secretly bankrolling my brother's entire life." Mom looked desperate now. "It wasn't like that." "Oh, really?" I cut her off. "Then let's see. You gave him the house. You used my money to help cover his expenses. What else? His car, his failed business, his gambling debts." Mom flinched, and that's when I knew. I let out a slow, bitter exhale. "Unbelievable. You weren't just helping him. You were enabling him." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "That's enough! He's your brother!" I met his glare head on. "Number, he's your son. I was just the backup plan." Mom's lip quivered, but I had no sympathy left to give. Dad, on the other hand, was still trying to control the situation. "You're making a mistake, son. We're family. We need to look out for each other." I tilted my head. "Funny, I don't remember you looking out for me." Mom grabbed my wrist, her voice pleading now. "Please, we need your help. We We're not as stable as you think. There it was, the real truth. They didn't just favor my brother, they relied on me. The money I sent them every month, it wasn't just extra spending money. It was keeping them afloat. And now they were screwed. I slowly pulled my hand away. Well, Mom, I guess you'll have to figure it out. She gasped. Dad shot up from his chair. You're being cruel, I smirked. No, Dad, I'm being independent, just like you always told me to be. With that, I grabbed my keys and turned toward the door. Mom's voice cracked. If you walk out that door, you'll regret it. I paused, gripping the doorknob. Then I turned back, my expression unreadable. No, Mom, you will. And then I walked out. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. I walked out of my parents' house without looking back, but I knew this wasn't over. And sure enough, within an hour, my phone started blowing up. First, a text from Mom. Mom, you're making a mistake. Don't do this to your family. Then, Dad. Dad, you're acting like a child. You think cutting us off makes you powerful? Just wait until you need us. I laughed out loud at that one. When had I ever needed them? Every time I struggled, they told me to figure it out. But when they needed me, suddenly I was supposed to be the dutiful son? I ignored the messages. But then, just as I expected, my brother called. I stared at his name on the screen, debating whether to answer or let it go to voicemail. But then curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. Wow, I said, before he could even start. Calling me already? Let me guess. Mom and Dad just told you the gravy train has stopped running. There was a pause. Then his voice came through, tight with frustration. You're really doing this? Just cutting them off like that? I smirked. I don't recall you ever sending them money. Why do you care? He scoffed. Because they're our parents. I rolled my eyes. Oh, now we're using our? Funny, because when they handed you the house, I don't remember them saying our inheritance. Silence. Then he sighed dramatically, like I was the unreasonable one. Look, man, I get that you're mad, but you're overreacting. Am I? I said, my voice cool. Let's break this down. They've been using my money to cover for your mistakes. They gave you the house behind my back, and now that they don't have me paying their bills, they're freaking out. He had nothing to say to that, so I pushed harder. What's the real reason you're calling, huh? You worried that now that they don't have me, they're going to start leaning on you. Silence. Then finally he muttered, They asked me for a loan. I grinned. Ah, I said, leaning back into my seat. So now you're the backup plan. My brother groaned. This isn't funny. To me? It's hilarious, I said. Enjoy being the golden child, bro. Looks like you finally get to see what it really means. Before he could say another word, I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt zero guilt. They had used me, lied to me, taken from me, and now they had to figure it out on their own. The next few weeks were blissfully quiet. No more phone calls, no more guilt trips, no more random emergency requests for money. And it felt damn good. But then, I started hearing things. First, from Uncle Dave. He called me out of the blue one evening, his voice laced with amusement. Kid, you really did a number on them. I frowned. What do you mean? He chuckled. Your parents are scrambling. They're telling everyone you abandoned them, that you just cut them off without warning. But the best part? They keep dropping hints that they could really use some financial support. I laughed. Let me guess, no one's stepping up? Bingo, he said. See, the thing about people like your folks, they burn bridges without realizing they might need them later. Turns out, no one in the family is willing to bankroll their lifestyle, not even your brother. That caught me off guard. Wait, so he's not helping either? Oh, he tried, Uncle Dave said, clearly enjoying this. But it turns out, your parents didn't just use your money to help him. They also bled him dry, too. He's been trying to keep up appearances, but apparently, he's in way over his head. I let that sink in. My parents had spent years favoring my brother, giving him everything, covering for every mistake. And now, they had drained him too. I shook my head, smirking. Karma's a funny thing, huh? Uncle Dave chuckled. Sure is, kid, sure is. After we hung up, I sat back, thinking. My whole life, I had watched my parents put my brother on a pedestal, while expecting me to just grind through life on my own. And now, he was the one struggling, and they were panicking. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just felt free. They had made their choice, and now they had to live with it. A month passed, and my parents finally did something I never thought I'd see. They broke. After years of treating me like I was less than, after years of expecting me to be the one who held everything together while my brother got every handout, they caved. It started with a text from Mom. "Mom, can we talk, please?" I stared at the message for a while, debating whether to even respond. But something told me this was different. This wasn't another attempt at a guilt trip. This was desperation. So, out of curiosity, I agreed to meet them. One last time. I walked into the coffee shop, and the moment I saw them, I almost didn't recognize them. Mom looked stressed, her usual perfectly done hair a little out of place. Dad looked tired, the same man who once sat with his chest puffed out now slumped forward, hands folded. They weren't the same people I had last spoken to. They were humbled. Mom gave me a nervous smile. "Honey, I'm so glad you came." I sat down, arms crossed. "All right, talk." Dad cleared his throat. "Look, we need to apologize." Yeah, I raised an eyebrow. "For what exactly?" Mom sighed. "For everything. For the way we treated you, for lying, for taking your money and never being honest about it." I said nothing, letting them squirm. Dad exhaled slowly. "We screwed up, son. We thought we were doing what was best, but we see now that we were just selfish. And now, well," he hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "We're in trouble?" There it was, the real reason for the sudden change of heart. I leaned back in my chair. "Let me guess, you're broke." Mom winced. Things are difficult right now." "Difficult," I repeated, letting the word hang between us. "You mean because you spent years relying on my money while handing everything to my brother?" Neither of them spoke. I nodded slowly. "And now that he's out of money too, you're coming to me. Again." Mom's eyes watered. "Honey, please, we just need a little help to get back on our feet." I held up a hand. "Stop." She froze. I looked between them, my voice steady. "Do you even hear yourselves? You used me, lied to me, took my hard-earned money and gave it away without a second thought. And now, when you have nothing left, when everyone else has turned their backs on you, suddenly you remember I exist?" Dad swallowed hard. "We don't deserve your help. We know that." I tilted my head. "Good, because you're not getting it," Mom gasped. "But," I stood up, cutting her off. You made your choices, you told me to be independent, and guess what? I listened." Dad ran a hand down his face, realizing there was nothing left to say. Mom looked broken. And me? I felt nothing. For the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. I tossed a couple of dollars on the table for my coffee and turned toward the door. Mom's voice cracked. "Son, please." I paused for a moment, but didn't look back. Then I shook my head. "You made your bed. Now lie in it." And I walked away. For good. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. No more guilt, no more obligations, no more being their backup plan. And the best part? I didn't regret it, not even a little. For so long, I thought that if I just worked hard enough, if I just proved myself, my parents would finally see me as their equal, that they'd finally treat me the same way they treated my brother. But the truth, they never would have. I wasn't their priority. I was their safety net. The one who always made smart choices, the one they could lean on when their golden child failed. But now, they were on their own. Over the next few months, I started hearing rumors from family members. My parents were struggling, really struggling. Without my money, they had to downsize their lifestyle. The nice little cushion they had built using my hard work, gone. As for my brother, he wasn't doing much better. Without my parents funding him, his financial problems finally caught up to him. He had to sell the house they gave him just to stay afloat. The life they had built around handouts and entitlement was collapsing, and me, I was thriving. I traveled for the first time in years, bought my own home, one that belonged only to me, and best of all, I was no longer carrying the weight of people who never appreciated me. Then, one day, I got a text from an unknown number. It was my brother. Brother. I get it now. I really do. I don't blame you for walking away. I miss my brother. I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe in another life I would have responded. Maybe I would have let him back in, let my parents back in, given them one more chance. But in this life, I left him on red. They had their chance. And now, I was finally free. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. My parents and brother spent years taking me for granted, assuming I'd always be there to fix their mistakes. But the second I stopped being their safety net, they collapsed. I used to be angry about it, but now, I just feel free. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic family situation? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them.